When we hear of ideas like the land of milk and honey, what are we actually talking about?
If you think about for a moment what you need to produce milk and honey, cows really need a lot of energy to produce milk. I mean, obviously we know they need protein, but they need plenty of energy. Bees really need flowering herb, right? But in reality, if you really want plentiful of honey and plentiful of milk, we need to grow forbs among grasses. So in any circumstance where you have either an annual or perennial grass, and next to that or in the same area you have a forb, the forb will always have more protein and more energy than a grass under the same conditions.
And if we want to pursue that as a goal, how do we actually do it?
The name of the game here is how can I promote more diversity of grasses and forbs? What kind of management is going to give me more diversity? And what kind of management is going to help me extend the green season? Because we have one of metric we have is the grass that I have has a lot of stems or very little leaves or is more leafy. So what kind of management is going to allow me to do that while at the same time I'm still making money? Because, we cannot save the world if we don't save the rancher.
All that and more on this episode 491 of the Working Cows podcast, brought to you by the Arrow L Ranch and the Wineglass Ranch.
Welcome to the podcast that gives producers a platform to discuss and share paradigm-challenging practices. Practices that have increased the effectiveness of their operation and the joy that their families have received from this lifestyle.
Howdy, everybody. It's Clay Connery, host of the Working Cows podcast. Very excited to be joined once again by Alejandro Carrillo. And he, of course, is a rancher in the Chihuahuan Desert. But as he said in a mic test for a documentary that he was a part of once, he is one of the rainmakers of the desert, and kind of an amazing accomplishment that they have going on there with what they've been able to accomplish as far as increasing stocking rates and reducing winter feeding. And we're going to talk to him about some of that today, but where we're going to start the conversation is on this topic of the land of milk and honey, right? It's a quote from the Bible, but what does it take to make milk and honey? And what kind of plant communities are conducive for the making of milk and honey? And his answer surprises me. I think it'll surprise you as well. But before we dive into this interview with Alejandro Carrillo, I do want to remind you to go and take the survey. It's linked in the show notes page for today. This is the last week of the survey, last opportunity that you have to take the survey before the drawing happens in early February. So go out there. Again, Texas, as I said. We want to see those interviews coming in. The other beef producing states, Missouri, Kansas, Oklahoma, South Dakota, North Dakota, we want to see those responses coming in. So really appreciate everybody who's taken the time to go out and take the survey. But here is the last call on the survey. So please go out and find that link in the show notes page and go through the survey. And we'll be sending out some prize packages real soon. Now, my interview with Alejandro Carrillo. Alejandro, thanks for joining me again today on the Working Cows podcast. Very excited to welcome you back.
I'm excited to be back, Clay. Nice to see you again. And thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah. Again, shout out to Major Eric Chaya. Kind of said, hey, here's another guy you should talk to, and here's a topic you should discuss. And the topic that he suggested we discuss is the idea that when the Israelites were getting ready to enter into the promised land, that God told them that it was a land flowing with milk and honey. And Eric knew that I'm preaching verse by verse through the book of Exodus right now on Sunday mornings at the church that I pastor. And so he said that might be an interesting connection to make. And I said, yeah, heck yeah, that sounds like a great discussion. So kind of where do you start when you're thinking about this idea of the land of milk and honey?
Yeah, I've been very keen observant on the work we've been doing here in the Chihuahuan Desert. As you may know, the Chihuahuan Desert is part in Mexico, 3 or 4 states, and also 3 states in the U.S. It's the largest desert. And as my dad told me once, you're going to dance with the ugliest because you have to make it work in the desert. You have to make these holistic management regen principles work in the desert. So we started working about 17 years ago. And at the beginning, you start thinking about, I want to be a grass farmer. I want to grow grass, which, from bare ground to grass, I think that's a big step. But I think there were a couple of things that grabbed my attention, Clay. One was we were in actually Washington State, listening to Christine Jones. I don't know if you're familiar with Christine Jones. And she said that the grasslands of North America were in reality more forb lands than grasslands. And I thought about, well, then, as you just mentioned, one of the verses of the Bible is the promised land of milk and honey. If you think about for a moment what you need to produce milk and honey, cows really need a lot of energy to produce milk. I mean, obviously we know they need protein, but they need plenty of energy. Bees really need flowering herb, right? I mean, besides all what the trees can provide. For example, here in my context, the mesquite flowers and other bushes. But in reality, if you really want plentiful of honey and plentiful of milk, we need to grow forbs among grasses. The other thing that you may want to think about it is when we go with a client or we do a workshop on regen ranching, we use the refractometer to measure the breaks on the plants. So in any circumstance where you have either an annual or perennial grass, and next to that or in the same area you have a forb, the forb will always have more protein and more energy than a grass under the same conditions. And also, when you move your cows to a new paddock, it doesn't matter what the time of the season is, but let's say that is the growing season, green growing season. They always go and top off the forblands. Why? Because they know that the limiting factor on their diet, livestock in general, right, is energy. It's not protein. So you get into that paddock like in the first half an hour, and all your forbs have been just cut off on the top, and then they start gonna mix that with the grasses, right? What we call the yellow and the green, the stockpile plus the green. When you also go, Clay, to the books, like all these books that define all the plant species that we're supposed to have, in my context, let's say North America, and even in Australia, we have more than 200 different grasses. But not only that, we should have more than 200 different forbs. And always the question is, we're not talking anymore about bare ground. Let's say that we go over the bare ground where there's really nothing going on bare ground, compacted soils, but we go to grasslands. So one of the challenges we have as ranchers is we're happy to have, let's say, 10 to 20 different grasses. When in reality, what we have actually documented, we should have at least 100 to 200 different grasses, plus at least 100 to 200 different forbs. So imagine how that would change the way we raise and produce meat. I mean, it will give us a boost, not only on us, but also wildlife and also the insects, in this particular case, the bees. But in order for us to have more forbs, I see grasses now as a conduit to actually improve the water cycle. And I'm talking more about the perennial grasses. I mean, these grasses with deep root system that would help us hold the water. And we have forbs. We have Ferrero forbs when it rains a lot. But how can we have more forbs if we only have like certain, even below average rainfall? through perennial grasses. I mean, through perennial grasses, and when we talk about perennial grasses, we're talking about uh, winter and summer, cool season, warm season grasses. Here where I am in Chihuahua, Mexico, obviously we are dominated by warm season grasses. And as you go where you are, the Dakotas, yeah, you will be dominated by cool season grasses. But we have to have a mix. We have to have a mix because that will actually help having green year round. And then keep that photosynthesis through a green plant going, keeping those soils open through aggregation. And then with not much of a rain, we're going to start growing a lot of forbs.
Let's take a quick break and hear a word from our sponsor today, the Wineglass Ranch. Coming February 25th to Oglala Livestock, a total age dispersion of the Wineglass Ranch Easy Keepers. The majority of these are going to be 3 and 4 year old, coming 3 and 4 year old, single iron, home raised Wineglass Easy Keepers, developed in a intensive, non-selective rotational grazing system. They are adapted to excel in harsh environments. There will also be on offer 250 head of Angus and black whiteface heifers, again, single iron, home raised, and 150 head of red and red whiteface heifers, single iron, home raised. So quite the opportunity here coming your way February 25th at Oglala Livestock. For more information, visit wineglassranchinc.com. Yeah, great. So let's talk about maybe the process or the stages of plant succession then. So
Yep.
It seems like, well, first of all, let's start here. How are forbs usually viewed? Like, what do people usually, when they look at a forb, what do they usually call it? What's the common word?
I know, we call it weeds.
Right. And then we go out and we try to control all the weeds, right? And we want
Yes.
just grass. And that is, I think what I understood you to say was the forbs are higher in energy anyways, so they're going to help with milk, and they're a flowering plant, so they help with meat. Is that right? They're a flowering plant, so they help with honey. So they're
No, I
kind
mean,
of doing both.
and you're right, Clay. I mean, they're going to help also with meat because at the end of the day, a cow that can fulfill his energy needs, it will produce more nutrient-dense milk, and that will allow the calf to actually grow better, much faster than what we used to, and express all its genetics. Yeah, but talking about this, I mean, we've been living the whole story here at the ranch, because when I joined the ranch, it was mostly bare ground. We were supplementing for 6 months. We have a high death rate, very low conception rate, kind of a bit of a very, very conventional, but also as well messy situation. And the focus always been, Clay, yeah, we know we can solve a lot of issues that we're facing in the world. Like we can actually prevent destructive fires, through livestock in the forest. We can prevent dust storms. We can actually fill in all these aquifers and then get the springs back that had been wiped out because that superficial water is feed by all these the root systems for the grasses and all the aggregation. But when we joined the ranch, it was mostly bare ground. So the first thing we saw was a bunch of weeds. And let's make a difference. There's a slightly difference between what I consider like weeds and forbs, because mostly weeds are with thorns, spines. They are telling us, don't pull me out, don't kill me, because I'm the most important thing that we're seeing on weeds and forbs is what we don't see, which is the root system. Is if you see, for example, thistle, where does thistle grows? It only grows on compacted soils. It will never grow actually on soils that are not compacted or that retain good moisture. Actually, going back to Kristen Jones, you know what she said, and I was a bit like out of the box. If you want to improve your land, plant more weeds. Wow, that's insane. I mean, remember I was at some point I was on the border between Colorado and Oregon, right? They've never.
They'd be close.
No, they were close. No, I think it was that was
Idaho and Oregon, or
yeah. And then that I just crossed the border and I met a client there, a very nice family there. And then we went to a field that was full of thistle. Just feeling like, oh gosh. And one thought that we have as ranchers and probably farmers, we need to get rid of the thistle. Otherwise, if we let it sit, it will spread worse. It doesn't work that way, Clay. The way it works is you create the conditions for that thistle to actually try to help you. But if you change those conditions, those millions of seeds around the soil, they will not come up. I mean, they will not grow because the conditions will not allow them to grow anymore. You go back to and translate that to the woody plants that we spend on millions of dollars, like mesquite. Here, the mesquite in my ranch, because I'm growing more and more grass, more thickened grass, it's just going away. I mean, the grass is killing the mesquite. Some people say, that can be. How about the shade? Well, we don't really need that shade because when you have the soil covered with thick grasses, the temperatures will be in summer here in the desert, 75. You go to the next ranch nearby here, and on the same day, you will see the temperatures going 150, twice as much on bare ground. Obviously, if you put me on 150 Fahrenheit soil temp, yeah, I'm going to be looking for shade. But if you put me on 75 with thick grasses, then. But also the answer that I tell people, yeah, we're killing mesquites, but that doesn't mean that I'm going to end up just with grasslands. The original trees, the original woody plants that were here, like the wild olive, is like a beautiful tree that we have here. It needs more water. So at the point where we degraded the grasslands, it started going away. Also, we have kind of a yucca that also went away. And even if you go, Clay, to central Texas, where there used to be only oaklands, grasslands, I can count nowadays more cactus there than here in the Chihuahuan Desert. Why? Because we're desertifying all that area. Those small properties, everybody wants to have a cow and a horse, but there's no management of those animals. And now you start seeing all these thorny plants, as we were saying, right? Nature actually almost yell at us saying, hey, you're going in the wrong direction. And you know who's going to win? Who's going to bat last? I'm going to bat last. I mean, you're not.
Mm-hmm.
So I tell people, okay, if you have just bare ground, you don't have any chemicals or anything, are you able to pull that thistle out? No. Nature is telling you, don't touch me. I'm trying to help you. I'm trying to tell you what's going on. I'm going to open the soil, and then something else is going to come up better. But we need to let that cycle finish, like the weeds. It's kind of crazy, but it's the way it works. And the magic here, Clay, is the biology of livestock. We have here this woody plant that goes from here to California, the creosote from here to Utah and even Idaho, this evergreen plant. And I'm working with the bird conservancy organizations, and they told me you cannot grow grass among that creosote. It will have this allelopathic effect that will, yeah, I understand that. But what we're missing is the biology that the cow brings through manure, urine, saliva, hoof action, and that wakes up all the seed bank, which at the beginning is weeds, I understand, then annual grasses, and then perennial grasses, short and then mid-size. I mean, you go from the top down on the soil, and then you start retaining more water and more water. I mean, it's amazing. Last year we have plenty of rain last year. I mean, 2025. We have about 10 inches. For us, that is a lot of rain. Let me tell you that. And you should see the ranch right now. It's just so much grass. I mean, there's really probably not a square meter or square feet without grass right now. It's just amazing. In different stages, as you say, what stage you are on this part of the ranch? Well, I'm growing wheat and annual grasses. Okay, that's fine. So we even have a wheat that is a clear indicator that grasses are going to come next year. I mean, given that you have not even the average rainfall, but below average rainfall. But it's amazing how that even when I have a friend who is a veterinarian, and when he came here, he also consults for holistic management, regen ranching, and he was surprised to see the green sprangletop, which is like a 6-7 feet tall grass, native grass, that we never saw it because also we were grazing too often, that's what I call rotational overgrazing. You're just working for what you have, but then you need to allow all the grasses to express themselves. And the other thing that we need to know as ranchers is not only the where you're improving in nutrition, but you also need to develop those genetics that will actually fit into your new management.
Let's take a quick break and hear a word from our sponsor today, the Arrow L Ranch. Arrow L Ranch offers a unique option for those looking for bulls that are developed in a forage-centric operation. Their February 8th online sale with DV Auction will feature coming 2-year-old multi-breed composite bulls that are developed on grass and forage. The bulls come with a 4-year warranty and offer the simplest crossbreeding solution available. If you want to easily leverage the power of heterosis in your cow herd and add marketing flexibility to your calves, find the Arrow L Ranch sale page on DV Auction, closing February 8th. A couple of things there. First of all, I've never seen the same weed species grow 2 years in a row on my place.
Mm-hmm.
One particular place, I don't know if it was half an acre, maybe a little less than that, quarter of an acre probably, of solid Canadian thistle, and like you couldn't walk through it. It was pokey and spiny and waist high and just solid Canadian thistle. And I've never seen a Canadian thistle there again, or anywhere else that I can really think of on the ranch, so you just let it do its thing that 1 year and something else comes there. It might not be a perennial grass the next year, but it's not Canadian thistle.
Exactly.
And then we planted a cover crop a few years ago, and I kind of stopped. I got off the cover crop treadmill, probably before it was time, and we planted some perennial grasses, and they haven't really shown themselves yet. But the second year, or the first year, it was mare's tail, and then the second year it was like a wild sunflower variety. And then we'll see what it is next year. It's never been the same thing twice. And then the last thing I wanted to say was that, just to reiterate the point that you made, that in my understanding anyways, the more unhealthy the landscape, the more aggressive the weeds are, the more unpalatable, the more spiny and thorny and pokey, and like you said, they're saying don't pull me up, and they're saying don't eat me. I'm doing something here. And in my understanding, what they're doing is pulling nutrients to the soil surface that can be then used by the grasses and the biology to get to a better place. Is that a fair
No,
summary?
I mean, I completely agree with you. I think when we start bunching cattle, in a herd, and then putting it into quite a fertile place that was very degraded, the first thing was a kind of weed. It stopped throwing us more sticky, thorny weeds, but it was a weed that you hardly can even ride your horse. And then it came a different weed, and then a different one, and then they're gone. But the second time that we got this bunch of weeds, they were like taller than my horse. I mean, they were just huge. And I was concerned. I want to be honest with you. I was concerned, saying my cows are gonna go through all that stuff. And then my foreman said, "No, don't worry. They're gonna, like a huge litter of weeds covering the soil." You can imagine the root system of those weeds. It was just amazing. And yeah, I think there's a reason. I mean, if we as ranchers and actually farmers and in general, we think how nature is trying to help us, that would change our chip. like how this sticky, thorny weed is trying to help us. I don't know if you have noticed, but all those thorny, sticky weeds, they stuck into the livestock and into wildlife. It's like nature saying, I need to spread as fast as possible
Mm.
because this is a mess, and I'm trying to help you. And for example, one of our best grasses is the vine mesquite. I think that's the name in English. It has a round seed. You see the big difference because it's not thorny anymore. It's not sticky. It just okay. So you're providing a better soil. I'm not stressed. I don't have to spread out all of your ranch. No. So that's the kind of environment we're trying. All the thorny plants here at the ranch are just going away. Are just being killed by the grasslands. It's just amazing. Cactus, mesquite, cat's claw, and a bunch of these roly-polies, those things. It's just amazing. We were so concerned for so many years, fighting them, trying to get rid of them. But the problem is we never changed the way we manage. So we're just on a cycle. Yeah. Same for juniper, you just put a name there. How much money we spend in the US fighting juniper as well?
Yeah, and if you don't change your management, you end up with something. You end up with more of the same problem. Usually, a lot of times, right?
And less money.
So you, right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because you spent money to fix the problem, and the problem got worse in a lot of cases. So I think the way I understood you to say was that grasses are a conduit to improve the water cycle, and once the water cycle is improved, you will end up with forbs. So
Yes.
the succession that you laid out earlier was weeds, annual grasses, perennial grasses, both tall and short varieties,
Yes,
and
sir.
then the forbs come in after that. That's kind of the pinnacle of the journey, is when we get back to having that good mix of maybe even 50% forbs and 50% grasses out there on the landscape. Is that, am I understanding you right?
That's no, you're right, Clay. Sometimes, like consumers, they ask, how do I know if my farmer is doing a good job or my rancher, right? Just use your senses. I mean, do the meat taste good? Because, we need to remember that the nutrient density of the meat is coming a lot from phytonutrients from the plants. And the phytonutrients are also called flavonoids. So the meat has to have flavor. I mean, and I think the later research is we're at least targeting for at least 10 plants. But here at the ranch, probably the livestock is eating more than 50 to 80 different plants and shrubs and things like that. But then, does it taste good? Do you feel good when you're on that context? Is it too thorny? Is it too hot? No. I mean, one of my goals, big hairy goal is, can I walk in the desert barefoot in the middle of the summer without, getting a thorn or burning my feet? So does it feel good? Does it taste good? Does it look good? And when we say can you hear the life, the birds, all that stuff?
Mm-hmm.
But when I say that does it look good, it's because it's colorful. It's not only the typical colors of the grass, right? Yellow and green, gold and green. No, it's full of colors because of the forbs. Because you're going to grow a lot of flowers from different colors. That's a quite pinnacle of regeneration. I mean, you have to have, and if you see the names of many forbs, they start with prairie and then the name. Prairie, the name. So yeah, they're going to start growing among your grasses. It's like the top of the cream, or how nature is going to reward you from actually working with her. The other thing that you mentioned, Clay, is diversity. We always talk about diversity of microbiology, the life in the soil. We talk about diversity of the plants, but we seldom talk about diversity of livestock. And it's very important to have that. I mean, I know that it's difficult to actually get or get the expertise on one kind of livestock and the markets and all that stuff. But here at the ranch, we believe we have we're running donkeys and cows and horses and sheep. And obviously, it would be ideal to run chickens after that. But well, this is a big range with a lot of predation. But I have a friend we've been helping him in Central Mexico on an agave tequila regen project. Probably you're familiar with that project.
Mm-hmm.
And
I'm not familiar with it, but yeah, I understand what you're saying.
yeah, it's amazing. So he started with a multiple species. I mean, it's amazing. It's a place that gets about 30 inches. It's pretty good rainfall. And he started with sheep, horses, and donkeys in the agave plantation. Then he incorporated chicken like a month after. Oh, you should see where the chicken finished the work. You see a lot of orbs there. It's just amazing how the diversity of grazers or livestock does to your land. It's just incredible.
Yeah, not to mention the fact that those livestock diversity of livestock is probably a bigger key to succession, and I'm talking about now succession of ranch management than a lot of people would give it credit for. Another income stream, another set of teeth and hooves and claws, as it were.
Yes.
That eats differently and doesn't eat the same things, and maybe is even a dead end host for things that are challenges for the other livestock species, and then so you can bring that in and they're not taking any grass from anything else because they're surviving on different things, and then that can become an income stream to bring another generation back to the ranch, right? So there's big opportunity there.
No, yeah, Clay. And then we know, that, for example, the hunting business is big in the U.S. We know that this kind of management, I mean, it took us years to see all these javelina and these foxes and plenty of deer. And it's just, I mean, obviously predators as well. But it's amazing. I mean, you're creating a beautiful environment. So I was telling you, we work very close with the bird conservancy organizations in the U.S., and it's migratory birds coming from where you are, the Dakotas, and actually southern Canada, to here. And now we have a modus tracking station. And for example, our ranch is south of the border, where they overwinter, where you can count more endangered and listed species in any other property. So I think what is good for our business, for our cow business, is good for the wildlife. That's a battle that we've been having for many, many years, with many conservationists. But there's now an understanding that the rancher is needed with a proper management to actually save those species that are just going away.
What does that proper management look like? What are some of the things that you would say are keys to helping make livestock a tool to facilitate that progress, to improve the water cycle with grass to the point that you do get some of those good forbs coming back in?
Yeah, I think well, for me, Clay, the name of the game here is how can I promote more diversity of grasses and forbs? What kind of management is going to give me more diversity, and what kind of management is going to help me extend the green season? Because we have one of metric we have is the grass that I have has a lot of stems or very little leaves, or is more leafy. So what kind of management is going to allow me to do that while at the same time I'm still making money? Because we cannot save the world if we don't save the rancher. I mean, it doesn't work. And for us, in our context, in a precipitation area that most of the rain falls in 3 months, July, August, September, and it could be a drought of 3 inches in the next year or the following year. We like to graze only once a year or even once every 18 months, where all the grasses, we have like a stockpile of grasses. Pretty much right now, for example, we are about 5 months away from the rainfall, and they're still in my ranch. I still have 2/3 of the ranch stockpile. So it's not only give you peace of mind, it really gives habitat for a lot of species, And then we're leaving some grass behind when we graze. So we try to get just one herd, because every time you get to another herd, obviously the bulls are on their own right now because we have a breeding season, calving season of 75 days. But is that herd of 500 animals, 5, 6, 700 animals together? And here the ranch is about, grazeable 20,000 acres. And we have 350 permanent electric fence paddocks that we can subdivide it. In a good year, we may end up with 1,000 paddocks. So is that animal impact on one herd that allow us to massage the land and then rest it for a while. Now, another key area that we haven't mentioned, Clay, is the insects. Gabe Brown visited my ranch a few times. One of his last time that he came here, he said, Alex, I haven't seen so many insects anywhere in the US. I think we're using too many chemicals. So the insects, I think, play a key role on regeneration. And I can mention to you a couple: dung beetles and termites. They finish the work. I mean, they are. Remember that the dung beetles put 2/3 of the cow pie into the soil, and that actually give you a booster. I mean, I don't want to see, when we go to these ranches, I don't want to see like oxidized cow pies. Obviously, winter is different, right? But in summer, in a good population of dung beetles, probably you shouldn't see any manure in 3 days after you left the paddock. It's pretty impressive. I mean, plus they reduce 90% the fly population, but in terms of management, we respect all the creatures, the small ones, the big ones, the predators, everything. We try to get ourselves into nature and not trying to dominate nature.
Yeah, for sure. So one of the things that you brought up a couple times there is having the horses as part of the grazing group, and Tom Kravitz made me laugh when he said that horses are helpful because they help create herd effect, where a large, the excited movement of a large group of animals. I think that's Ranching for Profit's definition of herd effect. And he said they're helpful because horses are jerks and they like to chase things around just for fun. And so they're creating that excited movement of a large group of animals. And that is a key. That is one of the key principles for grazing, is getting that excited movement to happen. And that helps with all kinds of things, breaking up that soil cap or whatever the issue might be, and getting the seed bank stirred up so something else can grow there. Has that been part of your experience in that?
Yeah, we don't have really many horses. We have about 7 mares, and the rest are saddle horses, like 10 saddle horses. The ones we rotate the horses, the one that are resting are with the cows, the one are here at the ranch, at the house. While we have a bigger number is the donkeys. And to be honest with you, I mean, being in every state on the Western US, I can tell you that nowadays the problem is not anymore overgrazing. The problem is overresting a lot of grasses. Because overgrazing is when you don't move the cows, or they stay too long, and then the grass starts trying to recover, and then it graze again until you kill that grass. Overresting is the grasses co-evolve with the grazers, with the ruminants, and with the deer and buffalo, and they need to be grazed at some point. Otherwise, they're going to start tending to oxidize. That's why we say, we have 3 colors on the grasses: gold, gray, and green. We don't want gray because gray is an overrested grass, and it is not doing any good for wildlife, for microbiology, or the microherd. We only want green and gold. I mean, green and yellow. But that's so a lot of the Western states are actually desertifying or getting degraded, because we are in a vicious cycle where you have less rainfall, less effective rainfall, like less infiltration, and then you grow less grass, and then you spend more money, and then you have less cattle and less profitable, and so on and so on and so on. And then even, Clay, if we have a magic things happening saying, all the ranchers in the Western U.S. know how to do regen grazing. You know what would be the first problem? We don't have enough cattle. We don't have enough livestock. And here at the ranch, I'm striving to get 10% donkeys because I see my donkeys as a termites. I know you have seen the work of termites, that the dung beetles take like the long-hanging fruit of the cow pie, and then at this time of the year, the termites finish the work and they don't leave anything behind. So the donkeys, the plan here, the donkeys are now with the cow herd, but the idea is the donkeys is a follower of the cattle, because they can take very low quality forage like the stems and even bark of the trees, something like that, and convert it into manure and urine and things like that. And then if you have a broken land, like a mountain range or something, the donkeys can just go like goats. And what I like about the donkeys is that nothing get predated. I mean, they don't get predated by any animal, but also you don't have to change any fence. I mean, you just use the same fence as the cows.
Yep.
And you have diversity, right? It's like, but instead of having a donkey, you can have a cow. Well, I think donkeys are like the service crops or cover crops. The more diversity, the more resilient you are, the more plant diversity, yeah.
Yeah, very good. So we kind of started out by talking about the idea of milk and honey, and you mentioned that it takes a lot of energy to make milk, and that the forbs are high in energy, and that we should manage to have kind of a good mix of grasses and forbs. Any other thoughts or things that you would say this is a key to accomplishing that goal? We've talked about diversity of livestock and a little bit about grazing strategy. Anything else that you wanted to add there about getting to that goal of having a real diverse pasture?
Yeah, just you don't want to start like all over the board. You always gonna be looking for that small piece of land that you have within your ranch or farm. But you gotta start on a good piece of land. You don't want to start trying to tell people, I regenerate this big gully, like a 10-meter. No, because it's gonna take you longer. I mean, the point is, we all have partners some way or the other. People looking at us, or families, or brothers, whoever, friends, and we want to get results as fast as possible. So that's why I tell people, okay, show me your best pasture. But that doesn't make sense. No, it does make sense, because you see that in what you consider your best pasture is far from being great. So you get that piece there. You increase the animal impact, the densities, the pounds per acre, just for a couple of weeks. And I gave him a notice saying, maybe you're going to have a lot of weeds at the beginning, but also if your grass is a bit darker green, then, well, the deal in the Western U.S., in most of the Western U.S., is don't touch that for a year, because usually people are going like multiple grazings per year. Just keep that, let it rest it for a year. And then that has been enough for people to get convinced about, okay, I have a more diverse pasture. It's a good reserve for the non-growing season or the drought or winter. And also is darker green than the other pastures. And then they always need to go from the best pastures to the worst. What's going to happen on that approach? Well, yeah, there's going to be some still, degradation on some of the worst lands. But the thing here is, how can we save the rancher by actually him applying his investment in time and money into preserving what's still out there? Because if you ask me, I did exactly the opposite, and I got into a catch-22. I mean, no results in the degraded area, and then the good area that I didn't graze was oxidizing. Yep. I'm being experimental, being experimental. I think one of our best clients is, let me try here. Don't be afraid of failing, but I'm not saying that we want to say, oh, you try and you're going to fail the business. No, it's going to be like a learning experience at a small scale.
Yeah. I I've heard that come up often, and it's definitely a paradigm challenge for me. But then I heard somebody in a totally different sector, somebody more on the people management side of it, and really the self-management side of it. Josh Kirpan said the other day, he said, invest in your strengths, not your weaknesses. And same thing that you're saying and others have said, start on your best ground, not your worst ground. And we're more bothered by our worst ground. We see the bare soil and we're like, oh man, I wish that was better, and we want to try and make it better. But if you invest in your best ground, then it will get better faster than your worst ground will get better faster. Is that accurate to your experience?
No, I love that. And you got a very important point, Clay. I tell people, we were not created. We were not given a world where the common ground is the droughts, floods, dust storms, destructive fires. We were given a beautiful world. So if we work in sync with nature, then we're going to restore that beautiful world. I mean, there's really no need for so much suffering.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Very good. Alejandro, thank you for your time today.
Thank you, Clay. It was nice talking to you again.
Very good stuff there with Alejandro. Really appreciate his perspective and his experience, and just kind of the way that he observes the world, and really just have a lot of respect for what he has been able to accomplish there in the Chihuahuan Desert. Coming up next on the Working Cows podcast, we are excited to welcome back, as always, Dallas Mount. The survey that's been ongoing here for a couple of weeks is wrapping up as we speak, actually. And so, but one of the requests in that survey, you have an opportunity to make requests of guests, and somebody said, "Hey, more Dallas Mount." So here we go. We're having more Dallas Mount. So looking forward to having him on again to talk about paying employees and how do we go about deciding when it's time to hire, who to hire, and what to pay them so that we can keep them around as long as possible. So look forward to that coming your way real soon on another episode of the Working Cows podcast.
We invite you to visit workingcows.net to subscribe to the show via iTunes or Stitcher. You'll also find detailed show notes pages, resources from our guests, and the industry leaders who have influenced them. For more ideas on putting your cows to work for you in a more profitable way, tune in next week.